you tap on me, or what when I'm up, me baby see a only couldn't have been nothing. Into me, you walk a candykisseih nana, me better pack to Panago Fimi Yapama, into Tass and Nashas and Nashas, give me most of my most so much out of my daddy. Gotta say what could do, they could and give you Fernando Poe, and your original busy had to go. I do go so flow, we share you cocoa. I ain't need share, Mama Gaba, Omi Big Mama Gaba.
Yay! That is one of my latest beautiful Ghana songs. And you know why? I listen to Ghanaian music now because that is the only music that I can put on Facebook without having my show muted. And I think Facebook should be ashamed of themselves. Yes. Every week I'm going to say, shame on you, Facebook, even though I'm using you every week. Good evening, people. It is always nice to be back here talking to you guys. And also, you know, in the beginning, it was kind of like, oh my God, it's fun to be on radio and all of that. But you realize that being on radio is a good thing, and it makes people aware of things that are happening around them, to people they know, etc. Sometimes you learn from it. Sometimes you have an idea. Sometimes you think about things that's happening to you. Every second Wednesday of the month, I have politics, and I have Nana Asante, who's my guest today. She's a former mayor of Harrow from 2013 to 2014. And let me give you some nice information about Nana Asante. She's the secretary of IDPAD, Coalition UK. Sorry? And she's a community activist, and she currently chairs Africans for Jeremy Corbyn Values, and she was a Labour councillor from 2002 to 2013. That's a long time. 02 to 13. It's like 9 years or something. Thereabouts. I'm not very good. In Harrow. Well, she has political know-how. In some language, they would say she has political nuance. She has political information. She has political... And in any case, what she does is she educates us on issues. I am very lucky to have her because she's a busy woman. She's all over the place. She's a Christian. She does Girls Brigade. She does all sorts. She's a grandma. She's 4 times over. Busy, busy, busy. And yet, she has time for me. Now, GN Radio is very privileged to have Nana Asante, because Nana Asante tells us, shares with us, and lets us know what's what. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, and Happy New Year to your listeners.
Would you believe I can't hear myself? I don't know. Can people hear me at all? If people can hear, let them say, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Anyway, okay. I'm trying to listen to myself and see whether it's working or not. Well, okay. Now, Nana Asante, today we're going to discuss New Year resolutions in politics, and we're also going to discuss Brexit and the implications of it and what's happening where we are at. Some of us, and I am saying it without, telling anyone off. Nobody listened to me when I said, let's vote to stay. Let us vote to stay. Nobody listened to me in those days. That was last year. And I said it, and we voted leave, or especially Nigerians and some Ghanaians, were thinking they were trying to get rid of Eastern Europeans, which was such a stupid thing. You can see a Ghanaian or an African, you can see them because of their color difference. You cannot tell who is foreign when it comes to white people, especially if they speak well. You can't. Now, what people don't realize is there are a lot of people in Parliament in Westminster right now who are sons of Italians, immigrants, Polish immigrants, the lot. Even when you hear their names, you know they're foreign. And yet, my people did not listen to me. So now we're in the Brexit thing, and there's so much problem with it. So we're going to talk about its implications towards us. We are also in a hostile environment. We're going to talk about that. And so, Nana,
Yes.
over to you. When the first thing I said was we're going to talk about political New Year resolutions.
Well, I think everybody should have a political New Year resolution.
Okay.
Yeah, but mine, in a way, it's inspired by Shirley Chisholm. If you've heard of her, if you haven't, she was the first African American woman to be elected to Congress, and she said something that I think is quite powerful. And I'm quoting it from African Voices, which is a book with quotations for people of African heritage. And she said, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas." So that's the first resolution.
Okay.
Don't just stand there complaining, get involved. If you've got ideas to make change, implement them. Get people around you. So mobilize, be focused, and make that difference. So for me, that's the biggest resolution.
The biggest resolution you have is to organize, mobilize, and what's the fourth one?
I'm
Third
saying
one.
be focused.
Be focused. People, we have to organize, mobilize. The thing is, what with the two of us, it's a two-man show here,
Yeah.
but we're organizing and mobilizing because, yes.
And you're educating.
Because we're trying to get people to start thinking, listen, people, just buying one tuber of yam or plantain or a carton of milk for your children, whatever, it's a political stance.
Absolutely.
What people don't realize is every time you buy something, you use money, go to the bank, anything you do is a political act. Therefore, when you're doing it, think of yourself, think of your present, and think of the future. That's what it is. When it comes to politics, I get all worked up. I used to be the girl who used to say, oh, God, nah, I don't want to talk about politics. I'm not interested.
But politics is about life. And if you don't get involved in politics, politics will happen to you.
Exactly.
So you need to take, and I think maybe one important thing, after being mobilized, after being educated, we need to take action.
Exactly.
We don't need to just sit on the sidelines just complaining. As Shirley Chisholm said, we need to do something.
Mobilize, do something.
Implement ideas.
Yeah. And also, people, for those of you who live in the UK, and this political show is purely for those who live in the UK. If you live in the UK, always realize that you cannot think, oh, no, as for me, I came to go, therefore. No, it doesn't work like that. You live here. This is your life, your community, your council, your ward, wherever. You have to be part of the system because the system is going to affect you if it doesn't work for you and if you don't do anything for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So don't just exist. Think of ways to do something to better yourself
And your community.
and your community, your neighbor, your children, even the school they go to, be part of what's happening. Now, all of these things are resolutions, aren't they?
They are. And they are important resolutions. And also sometimes, I think people sometimes think, oh, that problem somebody's talking about is nothing to do with me.
No.
And there's one person who gave the example, like she had a job, she was working, she could pay her bills. And she used to think, oh, these people on benefit, they're lazy. And then what happened to her? She got ill, couldn't work. and suddenly she realized why you need a safety net.
Yeah.
So in the end, it's about people realizing that don't only think about your situation now. You might be earning telephone number salary. You might be able to pay your mortgage. You might even own your house. Things happen in life.
Yeah.
So you have to also think about, don't think about the homeless person sleeping on the street and thinking, oh, what
He's
a...
lazy. I get up to work, therefore.
Yeah, but you don't know what happened to him.
No.
You don't know what happened to her, because now there are lots of women on the street.
Yeah.
So we need to care in a community. You need to care about what happens to everybody.
Indeed.
And create a community that we're proud to live in. At the moment, I'll say the UK is a disgrace.
Oh
The
my
number, no, it is a disgrace. 600 people on the street at any, dying. 600 dying.
People are dying on the streets, and sometimes you see black people, even Africans, and they've been here for a long time, and due to whatever it is, something happens, circumstance, they die, or they're on the streets, and then you see them on the tube begging for money, and then the next thing you know, they're lying there in a lump, and then you see the ambulance and things coming to pick them up in front of shops, right there on Oxford Street. The biggest.
That's why I'm saying the UK is a disgrace. And I think as people living here, we need to say it. It's unacceptable. The 5th or 6th richest country in the world, having people living in such squalor and such, such need, and people walking by. Just before Christmas, he was Eastern European, died just outside Westminster.
Oh.
Yes, while they are there in Parliament debating all sorts. He had a job. That's even the worst bit. People say, get a job, it'll get you out of poverty. He had a job, but he couldn't afford the rent. Therefore, housing and the cost of housing, it's political. You need to care about it. Just because you're okay now doesn't mean you should just sit back. Why is it that social housing was sold, council housing was sold, and none was built? I mean, it's good to put people on the housing ladder. Wonderful. You put them on the housing ladder. What about their children and their children's children? You provide, you sell it off. You've got the remittance, build. But they sat there and did nothing. And the rest of the country voted them in. So they need to take responsibility.
Yeah, they need to take... Look, politics is important. And that's what I always say to people. I say to women especially, I want women to get into politics. Because the men are just there and they haven't done anything for us. And actually, we are the human beings who are living, working, doing things, bringing children out into the world. Therefore, we should take responsibility for what is happening around us. We should be part of making the laws to suit us.
Absolutely.
We should, how can it be that there are 20 men sitting around a table discussing women's issues and there's no woman there?
Well, it's funny, there's an African proverb that women hold up half the sky. So if things are going wrong, it's partly because half the sky is not being held up. Women aren't there. I think you need balance.
There needs to be a balance.
You need balance. And the reason why, and interesting enough, the parliament that is the most progressive, Rwanda.
Really?
Yes.
They got loads of women there.
They've got 50%.
Wow.
So it's one of the most progressive in terms of parliaments.
There was a time when Tony Blair had, Blair's babes. And there were so many women.
Let's give credit to the Labour Party. It was the Labour Party that brought in all women shortlists.
Really?
People castigated the Labour Party for doing that. But I think the thinking behind it was, look, we've got a parliament of 650 people, and they tend to be men. The only way to redress the balance and get close to the 50% is to make sure that in certain seats, only women can stand. Because if you look at the way things are arranged, sometimes it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I remember years ago, the Labour Party had this thing that if you are sending delegates to conference and you can only send one, then you alternate. If this year it's a man, next year it's a woman. Constituencies used to say, oh, we can't find a woman. Then they said, then you can't send anybody. They soon found women who could go. It just shows that when you put things in place and you insist that you need to be representative, they tend to come through. So now,
is that like affirmative action?
I would say it is. In a sense, it's just redressing old injustice. And if you notice, people who complain about the situation being changed are people who've been enjoying privilege.
Of course.
Because somebody,
Why would you want to change the status quo if
when you are
it
the
suits
one,
you? Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
And I remember somebody saying, and it's quite funny, saying that there'll be real equality when we have as many mediocre women as we have mediocre men in parliament.
Oh my God. Are
Because
they saying the men are mediocre?
there are a lot of mediocre men. There are some excellent men there, but they're mediocre men. So it isn't that women are not capable. There are lots of capable women. But to act as if it's because they're not capable, well, get as many mediocre women in as you've got mediocre men. I believe in excellence, and we should but there are mediocre men there. Who said they're the best to represent us? So let's make it a system where we elect those who have the skills, in fact, also have the passion to look after community. And that's what we ought to do. So it's about people getting involved and making sure that the way in which we select candidates, the way in which we choose people, the way in which we encourage people to stand, sort of encourages people to do it.
One of the things that I want people to know, though, it is not easy going into politics. We had that chat last year when you were educating us on how to get on the ladder and all of that. And it's not easy because you will have people who may be racist, maybe genderist, all of these issues. But as women, I think that you should rise above it. If you are determined that you want to do something for your family, your community, your country, the world, then you should have that strength of conviction to do it.
But I would also say that everything in life is hard.
Indeed.
Even having a job. You've gotten into a job because of your skills.
Yeah.
You find that even in the job situation, there is politics.
Yes.
Yeah, there is racism.
Yeah.
There's structural racism, there's institutional racism.
Yeah.
There are always things that will hold you back, and you can either rise above the problems or you can sink. It's a decision. You must make sure that in life, if you really want to make your mark in the job, in politics, at home, wherever, in school, you've got to want to do it.
You have to want to do it, and you have to believe that you're going to amount to something. This is what I always say, that look, you cannot come into this world, go to school, find a job, do all the right things and die. What have you done, really?
Right.
You have to amount to something. You have to, there are people who in their life, they feel frustrated because they're not being able to do something that, they want to do. And they, I've always wanted to drive a truck. I was getting frustrated because I couldn't drive a truck. I remember when I was a kid, I have brothers, so everyone got the chopper bike, and then my mother and father bought me that tricycle with a basket in it.
Yeah.
I nearly died. I did not want it. I would not ride it. I was adamant.
They had
So
to get you
in
a
the
proper
end,
bike.
I got a proper bike. I rode it for a while, and then one day I rode it with, in a dress. I had to wear shorts to ride it. I went in a dress. My grandmother was mortified. The bike was taken away, and then I lost interest. Yeah, but I wanted to drive a 4x4, a big car, and in the end, my people,
You did.
I am driving it because that is what I want. And the feeling of accomplishment and the happiness when you actually do something for yourself and aspire, that was what I wanted to do. Therefore, people, if you want to be in politics, and I know I have a few people who are interested in that sort of thing, please get it interested. When the leaflets come through the door and they say there's a meeting here, go to the meeting.
I would say even be more proactive than that.
Oh, really?
Be more proactive. If you are that interested in politics, you want to stand, find out where, first of all, contact whichever party you're interested in. I would say Labour, but again, people have different values.
Yeah.
So whichever party, find out where they meet. Most parties have got websites.
Yeah.
Go on the website, find out how to become a member.
Yeah.
Because the first step is to join.
Yeah, get a card.
Join
Become a
that,
member.
and then once you join, then start getting involved. Don't wait till elections when they start bringing leaflets. Be part of designing what manifesto they stand on. Be part of the solution.
Yeah, let us be part of the solution, people. Men and women, anyone who's listening who wants to do this, this is your time. This is the resolution time. This is the month of making strong decisions and keeping to it. Yeah. Following up and doing it and thinking, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Now, this is the world. The world has changed now. There is social media everywhere. There is the chance of thinking, okay, if I want to do this, shall I Google it? Shall I go on social media? Shall I find out? You know, so people, this is what is best for you. If you want to do it, if you want to get involved, if you want to be part of the people making decisions around you, for your children, etc., this is the right time.
It is.
I am excited. Life is exciting when you are actually part of the system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think when you decide that you can make a difference, it liberates you, because you realize that, look, all I have to do is, and let's face it, action sometimes needs other people.
Yeah.
But what is wonderful is when you start getting people around an idea, and together you start making that change.
Yeah.
And you can make a change. You don't have to look at challenges and say, oh, well, that's how the world is. The world can change. And that is what's exciting about life.
The world can change.
Because you can make it change.
Yeah, because you are now part of the system. People are making decisions for us. And it's crazy. Those decisions are not working. Now, if you're listening, wherever you are in whatever country, you can do it wherever you are, wherever you live, wherever you're part of a system. You can, because you cannot continually allow people to make decisions for you that are not suitable for you.
Absolutely.
They're not suitable for your children. They're not suitable
for your parents.
For your parents.
They're not suitable for anybody. Because I think sometimes the reason why we have these foolish decisions is because we do not take the trouble to make our voices heard.
Yeah.
You cannot sit in a country where suddenly it seems to be okay to have food banks. And some MPs think it is wonderful to go and take pictures at a food bank. What we should be happy about is food banks closing.
Yes. People can afford foods in their homes and not having to go to food banks. Now, you see, people are not aware, but some of these Western ways have eroded family, have eroded compassion, empathy.
I wouldn't say it's Western ways so much as it's, I'm sorry to say, conservative ways.
Conservative, okay.
Yeah, because the reason why I'm saying it is that it's this, especially around Thatcher and Reagan's time, when it became I'm all right, Jack. It's all about me. When it's all about you and it's all this me, this individualistic thing, you get to a point where you don't see, when somebody hasn't got enough, you think it's because they're lazy, because they didn't work hard enough, and they are the problem. Whereas the other way of looking at it is that we are our brother's keeper. Yeah. We are together in this. If somebody has a problem, then it's our duty as society to help them.
Indeed.
So it's a different way of looking at things.
Okay. So now we've done, I think I'm excited,
Yeah, we've done our political New Year resolutions.
I'm telling you, we've talked about it. You've educated me, as you do every time you come, because slowly, I am getting into the feeling of, yes, we have to mobilize, we have to organize, we have to do something, which would, even if it doesn't, the fight is a long fight. And some of these things that have happened, even women coming to vote, even black people working.
Or Africans.
All of these things are hard won. People fought for it.
Absolutely.
People worked. People mobilized. People chained themselves to railings. People were killed by horses. All sorts of things happened for women to be able to vote, for girls to be able to be educated and move away from scrubbing floors. Now we have women lawyers, doctors, engineers, the lot. It's come out that a lot of black Americans, actually, or African Americans, are the people who are doing all the maths and worked all the computers and got people up in space.
And they were never given credit for
it. They never got credit.
But we're now giving them credit.
Well,
and I think it's also interesting that we're in the decade of people of African descent.
Yes.
We're halfway through the decade. And it's about time. And that's why I keep on saying, when people use black, I like political black. It has its place. But we're talking about African.
Africans, yeah.
And it's good for us to remember there's a continent called Africa.
Yeah.
There's no Blackistan.
No.
So let us, in a sense, take back all the achievements
Take
and value the people who have done things that Africans have achieved. We're hearing about some of their accomplishments.
Yeah.
And rather thinking of, say, oh, Africa has never contributed anything, that is wrong. And if you know the decade, the UN International Decade for People of African Descent, it's about recognition. So recognizing who we are, identity, and recognizing our achievements, writing history properly, rewriting it, because sometimes we've been airbrushed out of history.
Oh, yeah, we have been.
And then justice, getting justice for things that have, like justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah.
Getting justice, and then development is the third wheel. So that is the theme of the UN decade. And we have to make sure, that's another resolution, make sure that the decade counts for us.
Yeah, we have to make sure that the decade counts for us. That's wonderful. The decade should count for us. We should be part of the decision making.
Exactly.
And that is the only way we can make the decade count for us. We can't just sit down and think, oh, these people are going to do it. They won't.
We all have to
We
do
have
it.
to be part of it.
Exactly.
We have to be.
And one way people can get involved in the decade is to join IDPAD Coalition UK. And they can IDPAD, International Decade for People of African Descent. And we've got a coalition in the UK where you can become a member. It only costs £1 a month, so £12 a year. Or your organization can affiliate. So getting information about that is not difficult. Google IDPAD, the website should come up, and then ask for a membership form. And then be part of making that difference. What is it that we want in terms of recognition? What is it that we want in terms of justice? What is it that we want in terms of development? Because development for the African nation, and I think we need to also think in terms of global Africa. There are Africans everywhere. There are cities in India. There are Africans here. There are Africans in America. They are in South America. I don't know which continent where we are not. We are everywhere. But often we're the ones who are marginalized, are treated badly. But then we need to sit up and say, that's not acceptable.
No.
We have as much brains as any part of the human family. We contribute. And because we're contributing, etc., we need to be acknowledged. But freedom was never given. You have to take it. So it's up to us to work together to get it.
Yeah. I need to read this. Somebody sent a message and he says, people of African descent are survivors. Given almost 600 years of slavery, racism, and discrimination, we're still here. We're survivors.
Yeah, we're still standing, but we are saying we should do more than survive. We should thrive.
We should thrive. We should be part now. Now that we've survived,
we need to thrive.
We need to thrive.
And in fact, the human family will benefit if there's justice and equality. Because there's nothing worse than not... I mean, like somebody said, do we know if the person who's going to cure cancer is this poor African child sitting somewhere who's being ignored? You know, if once you know that, then you know that things can happen.
Yeah.
Everybody in the human family is important.
Somebody said the public has to be informed so they can be involved in decision making, because some people do not know how. So go on Google, speak to somebody, or go on Google if you have a computer. Google it. Google your party that you're interested in, and let's get working. That is the thing. This is the year of information. Information has been there, but not a lot of people are getting it. Now it's more open.
And it's easier.
It's easier than ever before. So January, make a decision, get there, start doing something for yourself and for the people around you.
That's so true. It's very important that we do that.
Yeah. And we're going to be talking about this every second Wednesday of every month until we suddenly have people who are there representing me, you, our children, grandchildren.
Yes.
Yes. Now, Brexit.
Yeah.
I was watching the news today.
Okay.
I saw that they voted against Mrs.
May
May.
ahead, gang.
It's been argued in the Commons. Mrs. May is not having a good time. People are saying she's suffering a backlashes and has 3 days to sort things out.
Yeah, that was one of the amendments that were passed.
Yeah.
The Grieve Amendment.
Good. Can you explain it to me and my friends on the
Okay.
show?
2 years ago, we voted Brexit. That in 2016.
That's it.
When we invoked Article 50, Article 50 allows any country in the EU to leave. Then you have 2 years to negotiate. Well, we've come to the end of the 2 years practically. But I'll be honest, I think they made a shambles of it. Because I think Britain still has delusions of empire. When I say it, I know Brits get all uptight. But they should see how the world sees them. They still think they've got the empire. Britannia rules the waves. The sun will never set on the British Empire. So they went into Europe. I mean, look at the maths. There are 27 countries and one. Why do you think 27 countries will bend over backwards for you? People who say they need us more than we need them, really? They're learning that they don't need you more than you need them. This bloc is the biggest trading bloc, and the whole world wants to trade with them. You might have had an empire, and even I'll say that former Gold Coast, which is Ghana, was one of your colonies. Ghana is part of something known as ACP, African, Caribbean, and Pacific. As African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries have an agreement with the EU. Why would we, as countries, if we know what our own interest is, leave that negotiated trade deal and come and negotiate with one little island? I mean, sometimes, no, honestly, I don't think they need to wake up to reality, and I think that's what's happening. So,
No, I think that what you're saying is correct, and I also think that it's because they plundered and pillaged elsewhere to make them strong. But the world has changed.
well, exactly.
The pillaging is over.
And I think it's exactly right. But then, okay, so where we are now with Brexit,
Yeah.
we voted to leave.
Yeah.
As somebody who voted Remain, I would say that, in a sense, I want them leave. And then let us, yes, you'll survive. But maybe when life becomes tough, they'll be
They will
clamoring to go back in.
Yeah, but it took us years to get in.
Well, people forget that.
Yeah, people don't know the history of it. And that, you see, my thing with Brexit is, and it's happened already, so we should let it
It hasn't
pass.
happened yet.
No, but we're on our way.
Well, you said you wanted to know what has happened in Parliament.
Yeah.
We have 4 options.
Okay.
We can just go. We can go and take the consequences, go without an agreement, which means we would have double-crossed everybody because, again, remember the EU budget is done on a 7-year cycle. So as we're leaving, there's some commitments that the UK has made. The EU has also made commitments in terms of funding, in terms of, there's so many funding things that have been done where money has been committed years in advance. So if you leave without a deal, then you haven't got an agreement to pay your share.
I think we have a caller.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gone now. The caller's gone.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
So if that is what happens, nobody will trust you. And you know that in business and trade, etc., your word being your bond is important. So that's the first thing. We can also decide that actually the other extreme, we can revoke Article 50, which means we stay. If we revoke, in fact, somebody took it to court, and I think the European Court has ruled that we don't need anybody's permission. So we don't need the agreement of the other countries. We can actually just withdraw our Article 50 letter, and therefore we stay. We would have to weather the storm politically in the UK because the vote actually was very close. It was 51-48. So people acting as if it was a decisive vote to leave. No, the country is split. And usually sensible people, which, I'm sorry, Cameron was not sensible. If you're changing something fundamentally, you go for a 2/3 majority. They didn't have a 2/3 majority, but it wasn't part of the
Agreement, yeah.
He should have done that because that's how you protect people. Sometimes that's why they say learn from history. Throughout history, people went mad when they said 2/3 majority. If you're making constitutional change, make it 2/3 majority. Because remember, we've been in the EU for 40 years. Unraveling and untangling that is not easy. So why do it on a whim?
But one thing I keep thinking of is rejection. You see, if you are with a group of people and then you stand alone and say, look, I'm more important, I can run it on my own, like, so you've moved away, oh, I'm going and I'm, blah, 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 blah. And you go. And this is layman's thinking. They get cross. You've put their backs up.
I'll tell you that at the same time, I've said negative things about the UK. I'll say the positive. The UK is valued in Europe.
Okay.
The whole socialist bloc is praying that the UK will stay, or at least will have a relationship with Europe that they can work with. I know about the socialist side because that's my leaning.
That's your side.
Yeah, but so I know that the UK is valued. I know that when it comes to the fight against racism, people are looking to the UK. Because no matter how much I complain about things, because that's the only way you get change. If you are satisfied, nothing changes. The UK is, I'll say, years ahead of some countries. So a lot of people look to our MEPs, and especially our socialist ones, as people who help to bring positive change across Europe. So yes, some people will be irritated with us, but there's also a lot of valuing the UK and her contribution. So the UK is a valued member of the European family.
Okay.
So yes, some people will be irritated, but a lot of people will breathe a sign of relief if we were deciding to stay. So those are the two extremes. In between, you have a Brexit deal. You can negotiate a deal, which means that there's a transition period, you put in things in place, etc. That is what Theresa May has tried to negotiate and brought back. What she has brought back doesn't appeal to the Remain side, it doesn't appeal to the Brexit side. So she's pleasing nobody. So that's the deal that's on the table that is likely to be rejected. The other option as well is to come up with a new negotiation. And for example, Switzerland is not a member of the EU, but has a relationship with the EU.
Oh, yes.
Norway is not a member, but has a deal. So
And
that's
trade deals. Do they have trade deals?
they have a trade deal with the EU. So that's what they call Norway Plus. So the Norway Agreement. So there are those kind of permutations. But Theresa May has said, no, we will not do this, we will not do that.
But is that the soft deal then? I mean, when they say soft deal, hard deal, this deal.
Yeah, the
that
soft deal is the kind of the Norway, the Switzerland, the EA, because that means you have a deal. But the bottom line with any of the soft deals is you have free movement of people.
Yeah.
That's part of the European ideal. The European ideal is that we will be a community where people can move for jobs, where goods can move without impediment. It is part of the European project. So you can't say you want to be part of it and not have free movement. But for those who wanted Brexit, free movement is something they didn't want. So that's the dilemma. Free movement of people is part of the European deal. So I'll give you an example. Even Switzerland. Switzerland prides itself, I lived there for 5 years, prides itself of being this, surrounded by these strong countries, and they are neutral. And they will not do X, Y, Z. Switzerland, to get its deals with Europe, has to allow free movement. If you don't do it, the sanction is a fine. Switzerland would rather pay the fine. So the UK, yes, so the truth is that their life is full of, politics is the art of the possible. So the UK can decide that, okay,
we're going to pay
the fines.
The fine, we don't want free movement. But when they don't want free movement, that then hampers us also moving into like going to Spain for holiday without a visa.
But what I'm trying to tell you is this, that free movement is part and parcel of an agreement with the EU if you want a trade deal with them. So it will be in the agreement. So we would be able to go to Spain as if you're a UK citizen without a visa, because that will be part of the free movement. However, you're supposed to allow them to come. So if you stop them coming, that's what I mean, they'll fine you. Because that's that we don't want to go to war anymore. So what they'll do is, oh, you were supposed to allow our people in and you didn't. So they'll take you to court and they'll say that you were guilty and you pay a fine. So what I'm saying, that's how things can be resolved. This is one simple, I'm sort of simplifying the permutations of it. Because if you continue doing it, there might be more sanctions. A fine is one of the easiest sanctions that they can put.
But if that is the case, what are they fighting over in the comments? Because I think a lot of people want to know what it is. There is the issue of, divisions in the news today. And today they voted. And when they voted, the Remain people won I think it was, they won the vote more
Yes.
than the Leave vote. And so it means a lot of people from the Tory side have also gone to join.
Yeah, 20 joined.
Yeah, and all of that. So what is she going to do now? How is she going to sort out the situation now?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. Her cabinet is split. The Commons is split. But again, I know sometimes some people are being very negative about the MPs. They are elected to look after our best interests. A lot of people, having looked at the sums, looked at the implication of Brexit, know that Brexit is like jumping over a cliff. It's a very bad thing for the UK. So they, as parliamentarians, are trying to do the best, which is why they're telling her, if you don't have a deal, we don't like the deal you've brought. So if we vote against it, come with a plan B within 3 days. Because in a sense, the clock is ticking. If we do not withdraw our Article 50, we leave the European Union on the 29th of March. If we haven't got a deal in place, that we haven't signed an agreement, then it means it's no deal. No deal is the worst of all possible worlds. And so because of that, MPs are trying to prevent it. Some of the, I'll say the people who wanted Brexit so badly, they think no deal is a good deal. Any person who knows the arithmetic and the thing of trade, it's the worst of all possible deals. To the extent that now the UK is looking at how, if there's no deal, it'll affect our shipments and everything. So,
oh my gosh.
yes, so because of that, they're thinking of, let's say, we need ferries. And then look at European corruption, it's an art form. They gave a contract of £40 million to a company that has no ships, has never run a ferry, and has no experience of running it. So that is what they've done. So can you imagine the shambles if there's no deal and we need that shipping company? This company has no experience. I don't know what is going to happen.
There is this issue also of fishermen, because they say they voted, most of the fishermen along our shores voted to leave the European Union because other people were fishing in our waters.
And we are fishing in theirs.
Yeah, well,
No.
care. They don't care about them fishing in other waters, but they are not the crabs and the things and all the things they're taking from us is making us sell the crabs expensive, the fishermen. So the majority of them came together and had a consortium and voted leave.
Fine.
Now they're regretting it.
Well, a lot of people are regretting and some people are not. I think the bottom line is we need to realize that referendum was not put through very intelligently.
No, it didn't explain it to us.
Because it was no, but it's very difficult. There's a complex matter. How do you put complexity in a yes or no? Nobody knew, at least during the whole Brexit campaign, nobody said that our cancer treatment would be affected by Brexit.
No one said it.
People didn't talk about that. And it's those kind of realities that are coming home now that people are realizing, oh my goodness, our supermarkets, they operate just in time. So you do not have huge warehouses. So our shops are going to have a problem.
Yeah, we will.
Food. Well, it's not less food. Maybe it won't be bad for us. Some of us are overweight. It might be a good thing if there's less food. But the thing is, because we have enough food, we waste a lot.
The
but
temple must be fed.
But it's the shelves.
Yeah.
We're used to shelves with, and maybe some people will say maybe it's better we don't have the diversity of goods. It won't kill us. But the point is, that's the reality. We have to prepare for a different way of life. We are used to Eastern Europeans coming to pick our vegetables because we don't like doing it. Some people are saying, well, then we'll jolly well do it. Well, you can't force people to do what they don't want to do. And that is why throughout the world, you've always had migration. And migrants always do the jobs the locals don't want to do. That is the reality in every community. You see, I know Africans. You see Africans here, even some of them, lawyers, barristers, working as security guards. Hello? Would they do that back home?
No.
So that's the kind of reality. Migrants tend to take jobs that nobody else will do. And then in the next generation, you don't expect them to do the same thing. Their life improves, things change. It's the reality of life. But that brings us very nicely to the hostile environment.
Indeed.
Because
hostile environment, people. We are in a hostile environment.
We always have been, to be honest. I think the reality is that some people are only waking up to it. The hostile environment didn't come overnight. It's been there creeping on us ever since I'll say 1948 Immigration Act. And even before that, under Queen Elizabeth I, there were always these things about, there are too many of them. So there's been talk like that. And even if legislation wasn't there, we felt it. There has always been this hostility. So we need to think, what is it we want as people? How do we deal with this hostility? I went to an event, I think, in November last year, run by BTWSC and African Histories Revisited. What they said was, look to Africa. Because in a sense, if you're not wanted, and like you said, even after 10 generations, will remain African, the Eastern European will blend. Nobody will know the Eastern European unless they don't change their name. Very few people realize that Michael Howard, who was leader of the Conservative Party, was actually a Romanian origin.
Oh, yes.
You know, because
I can name several. The Spaniards, the Italians, the Polish,
Absolutely.
the Czechoslovakians, all of them are in the Tory party. All of them.
And many of them you wouldn't know because either there's
They
been
are
a
all
name change.
white.
Yeah. And then even one of our I'll say the UK's biggest or most loved retailer, M&S, was started by a Russian Jew, Markovich. He started it in Leeds. But when you see M&S is a British company.
It's all British, it's falling down.
Yeah.
It's so British.
So that's what I'm saying, that after a time, certain things you wouldn't see. But with us,
Yeah, with us.
our face is our passport. So we need to also look at it this way. There was a time, I think, when my old man used to say that when he was a student, they hated people from Japan and China. They don't do that anymore. They used to call them the yellow peril. Have you ever heard that racial slur?
I've never heard it.
But they don't do it now, because when you look at Japan, it's one of the world leaders.
Superpower.
So we need to do the same for our continent. We need to do the same, and we need to invest our energy, our talents, our money in the continent and decide that, look, if they don't want us, we know where we're wanted.
Indeed. And one of the things that I always say is we have a lot of educated people from Africa. They come, they're very educated before they actually get here.
Yeah.
They come to the universities and things, and they've got all these qualifications.
They invest in this country.
They invest, they pay fees, they do all that. They work while they're here, and yet they are not treated well. We go back to your country, you're not treated well.
But then it's our country, and therefore there you can insist. Even here, don't accept bad treatment, because you've contributed, you have every right to be here. I mean, I don't know the details of it, but I heard that they deported a nurse who had worked in the system for 40 years.
Yes.
And that's the kind of thing. And then somebody was saying, oh, he can't get his pension. They've stolen his pension. No, they haven't. You can apply for your pension. You don't have to live in the UK to collect your pension. If you know, we have a lot of UK pensioners who are living in Spain. They're still receiving their pension. Your pension is a contract between you and the government. You have paid your NI contribution, national insurance. It is your money.
It is your
So
money.
even if they've deported you, right or wrong, I'm not going to the rights or wherefores of that deportation. You're entitled to your money. So I'll say to people, don't take a lying down. But I think, in a sense, it comes back to what we started at the begining. Get involved politically.
Get involved.
If they're deporting our people, we need to challenge it. On what basis?
People, we're about to go. We've got only 4 minutes left. Funny enough, we're chatting away. It looked like we had so much time. But two things. First of all, three things we've talked about today. We've talked about how this is a new year. This is the second week in the new year. And this is a resolution for yourself. How do you move forward? How do you better yourself? How do you make things better around you, around for your children, your environment, and everything? Secondly, we talked about Brexit, how it's going to affect us, how we should view Brexit. Whatever way we go, open your eyes, people. As they say in Nigeria, shine your eye. Because somehow it will affect us, but we have to rise above it.
Absolutely.
Because you live here. The third thing we talked about is the hostile environment. And, I haven't even gone on to talk about that guy, because I read about him and it's a long story, but we haven't got time for that today. But we'll talk about it next time when you're here. And that is, we need to help ourselves. And we need to read. And we need to listen to the news, people, my people. Listen to the news. Be aware of what is happening around you. When laws change, people don't know when laws change. People, get shocked when they go to do something and they find out. Or I heard today, you were saying, that someone goes into the hospital and they ask them for their passport. Now, the person in front of them, they didn't ask because the person was white. But she was black, so they wanted to know, where's your, are you British, etc. These are situations that we have to do. You have to know where you are at, because at any moment, something nasty could happen to you or your child or your friend or your cousin. Become aware, open your eye. We are in a hostile environment. And however much you think you are part of the system, if you don't know what the laws are, then what are you doing? You are becoming irresponsible.
Indeed. And one of the biggest responsibilities is make sure you're registered to vote. Talking about change, they changed the way in which people register to vote. It used to be that the head of the household just filled in the voters register for everybody. Now you have to register individually. So don't lose your vote because you're not aware that they've changed the system.
This is it. They've changed the voting system as well. So people, I have 25 seconds, and all I want to tell you is this. The voting registering has changed. So when the letter comes in, read it, fill in the form, get everyone to sign it and post it. Otherwise, when it comes to voting, you are not there. Now, they believe that black people do not vote. So they will not allow you. People, if you're in the radio, I want to bid you adieu. I'll be back here next week. The Facebook people, yes, we can still, as I was saying before, check and be sure that your name is on the voting register. Because now, the way they've done it, we black people, we don't read. And we
Africans.
We Africans. We try. You just look at it, you think, no. Read everything that comes through the door, because if the law changes, it could affect you. Regardless of whether you were born here or not. That's not the issue. Just please read it, know your rights, know what is around you, know what is ahead of you.
Indeed.
Thank you so much, Nana, for coming.
You're welcome.
This
Thank
has
you for
been-
having me.
Oh, you have educated us once again.
Oh, thank you.
I have enjoyed this show because I've learned something. Every time you come, I get excited. I did tell you that. I get excited because I'm one of those who was not interested in politics. Let them talk, let them argue. Because in homes, the men argue about the politics, things are happening. You're busy in the kitchen, you're coming and going. So you're not part of it. But now you kind of realize that actually,
it's your business.
It's my business. It is my business. And in my small way, I can help my children, the future, etc., and going on. So thank you very much, and I'm very happy that you came. I am honored once again. Oh, God, thank you.
And thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
It's a wonderful pleasure. Facebook people, friends, everyone, thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making the show what it is. Thank you. Bye-bye.